Hey there, folks. Welcome back to my C++ survival series in Unreal Engine 5. So, last episode we went through and we got stamina regeneration working around normal movement, sprinting, jumping, and all the stuff involved around that. And as I mentioned in the last episode, I was also going to cover, in this episode, I was going to cover exhaustion and paused regeneration in your stamina. So, drop out of the editor here. And this is actually a back-to-back recording, so need to close out of the editor, close out of live coding. We're going to need to rebuild the project. But before that, we can actually start working on this exhaustion system. So for this, it's actually all going to be in the statline component itself, so we can close out of these other files and open up these two. So as I mentioned, the exhaustion system I want to work with is something that allows you to pause stamina regeneration. It could be for a second, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, however you want to do it. And that's done fairly simple. So we're going to grab these two U properties. We want a edit defaults only. Actually, let's clear these up a bit. I got a mess in my code here. And we want a visible anywhere. Let's grab that quickly. So the edit defaults only, we want float max exhaustion. I can't spell. Oh, bear with me here. I'm having one of those brain fart moments where I can't spell. I'm missing an H. That's why it looks wrong. And in my case, now this is, actually, no, let's change that because exhaustion. So this is, well, I think of the name I want to use for this. This is going to be how many seconds you want it to be paused for running out of stamina. So seconds for stamina exhaustion. We want this, in my case, I want this to be 5. You can have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however you want. And then the visible anywhere one that we copied over, we just want float current stamina exhaustion. And you can expand this to work for things like health, mana, however you want it to be for your particular game. So really, that's all we need are those two variables. We're going to go over to the stat line component, and we're going to go back into this tick stamina. So we already have here a check if our stamina runs out. So we can do this quite easily here. So stamina exhaustion, current stamina exhaustion equals stamina seconds for stamina exhaustion. I'm having one of those moments. My brain just does not want to remember what I typed 30 seconds ago. Again, something I have to deal with on a regular basis. So now we're going to expand this function even further. So just to cover what we've done here, we're just saying if we ran out of stamina, we're going to set this current exhaustion. And then what we want to do here is, well, and as we got the return, it drops us out of that function. So next, this code won't be hit if we're sprinting and we hit this, we're done. So we're going to know if current stamina exhaustion is greater than 0.0. And just for clarity, the reason we're using 0.0 is we're working with a float value. If this was just like that, it's going to try and cast things to an integer, and you're going to get errors like 0.49 is going to be less than or equal to or less than 0. So we do that. Anyway, so if our current exhaustion is not 0, you can either write it as greater than 0 or is not equal to. But we want to go current stamina exhaustion minus equal delta time. And this is why seconds for stamina exhaustion. So we hit this, it's going to be 5. Current exhaustion is set to 5. and the delta time is going to be deducted from that 5 all the way down until it's been 5 seconds since it's out. And again, we just want to add a return in here. Now, we've got something that we can do some refactoring here really quick. If we're exhausted, we're not going to be sprinting, so we can actually add this up the top. Clean up the mess I made. And that's the exhaustion portion added in. It's actually as simple as that. So let's give this a shot quickly. We're going to build the project. As I mentioned, I haven't done a build since the live code in the last episode. So I'm going to pause this here while this builds, and I will be back as soon as it's done. All right, so as you can see, this build has succeeded. I'm going to open up the editor. And so going back just quickly while that opens up to cover these, the reason why you want the seconds for stamina exhaustion to be a edit defaults only. No, that launched quicker than expected. Let me just hop back to Visual Studio. So the reason why you want this to be an edit defaults only is you're going to want some shouldn't call them animals, should call them characters that have, say, a 1 second exhaustion period. You want some that have like a 10 second and things like that. So you want to be able to edit that per blueprint, but you don't want to be able to edit it at runtime. So that's what this is it's edit it in the blueprint, but not at runtime. And then we don't want to be able to edit this whatsoever, but we do want to be able to see it. So anyways, quickly back to the editor. Let's go open it up, run the game, and let's just pull up the character quickly, select our stat line, find our stamina, and see it's nothing there. We're going to go through, start sprinting. I'll get that pretty low before I go over current exhaustion. And now let's just get this down to 0, and you're going to watch that jump to 5, and now stamina regeneration is blocked for 5 seconds. And here you go. This is the reason being that I wanted to use that greater than 0 instead of not equal to 0, because we're not clamping or anything. We don't need to clamp for this. We can let it run into a negative value. So again, it's just an efficiency thing. Again, it's very small, but again, when you're working with multiple actors using this component, it all adds up in the end. So that is our stamina exhaustion system in place. We'll just double check that again. We'll run out. It hits 5, takes 5 seconds for it to tick down, and again it drops below 0. We let it go. We now start regenerating stamina. So now we've got that in place. The next thing we're going to want to do is work on both the side effects of running out of your hunger and thirst, and I'm also going to add in a sneaking functionality. So these are all going to be something pretty quick. So overall, this episode is going to be a little shorter than the other ones, but it should all be useful information to everyone. So I'll close out of the project, and we're going to stay in the stat line component for now. So with things like your hunger and thirst, we're going to actually end up creating individual tick stats functions for both of those. So let's go void tick hunger, const float or reference delta time, and void tick thirst, const float reference delta time. And define both of those. So, and what we're going to do is up here, we're going to change these to tick hunger, delta time, thirst delta time. And we're going to go add that logic in if I can get my capitalization correct. So first thing we're going to do here is if hunger dot get current less than or equal to 0.0. Actually, in this case, what we can do if it is actually, no, less than or equal to 0.0. It should only ever be 0.0 because we're clamping it. I just use that as a catch-all safety net. And then we're going to, so if it's below this, we don't want it to tick. We're going to want to do our logic, so we're going to add a return. Otherwise, we want it to be hunger.tickstat delta time. And we want to repeat this basic logic here. So we want if thirst.getCurrent less than or equal to 0.0, we're going to throw that return in there. Otherwise, we want the thirst to tick. So now this is going to be up to your project and your intentions. With mine, I do want there to be a health penalty. So we want this to be health.adjust. And we want this to be something fairly small. Now, again, you want this to be able to be defined per character. So we could, like, you could do something like that. Negative 0.1. What happened there? Oh, I hit page down instead of... So we could do that. But again, this is going to be exact same behavior for all actors. We don't want that. So we're going to do this again here. Edit defaults only. Float health. Starving health damage equals 0.5. We're going to say, so this is going to add up. Actually, no, because we want this to be something that we can easily do the math in our head. Starving health damage per second. So if you want your character to die in 100 seconds when they're starving, set it to 1. We're actually going to do pretty much the same thing for dehydration. So float dehydration health damage per second equals 1. And again, because these are worded in a way that they are a positive value, when we come over here, we want to go 0 minus starving health damage per second. And we'll just copy this. And we're going to change this to dehydration damage per second. Now, one other thing you can do to ensure these values are always a positive is you can do ABS, and that is just the absolute value. So that is, if this is a negative number, we're going to make it positive just for the purpose of this use here. And we can do the same thing here, ABS. So what this will mean is every frame, we got to change this actually, every frame we would be losing this value. So what we need to do is factor in delta time. So delta time. And that was the whole purpose of putting this per second. Is that ensures that we know this is a value that is going to be removed from the health over the period of 1 second instead of every 60 frames. So like if you're running at a 60 FPS, this would have ticked, and you would have lost 60 health over that second. So we've added that in. What I'm going to do just for the purposes of testing that is I'm going to change these to bigger values. So it's going to go down pretty quick. I'm going to build this quickly, and I will be back once this has built. All right, folks, so that's built, and what I did after that built, and as you can see here, I just opened up the editor again just to save some time. So now that we have those values that are affecting our health, the first thing we're going to want to do is, just so we can have a way to visually see that, we're going to add in another progress bar to our basic HUD. Add that in there. I'm going to move this up to the top just to keep these in some sense of an order, and save the rename issue. Change this name to health. We're going to change this to a nice red. Actually, we'll make it really easy. Just get rid of the green. All red. Create a binding for that. And we can just copy these over from here. Copy those. Paste those over. Change this to health. And pull that up. Compile and save that. Get the content browser out of the way. And let's launch. And this is probably going to be a little janky again because it's the first time launching since I ran the editor. Or not. So you can see our hunger and thirst are actually decaying pretty fast here. It is going to take a moment for these to get down. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to pull this over to pull up the character and their stat line while that's decaying. We don't need stamina for this one, but you can see these are going down at quite a fast rate. And these should hopefully not take too much longer. Let's walk around a little bit. Okay, so we're having one hit. Now you can, oh, we have a logic error here. So our thirst started doing, did one tick of health damage, and that was it. But our hunger is actually doing it properly. So let's figure out what's going on there. So let's hop back over to Visual Studio here. Let's go into the statline component. So our thirst did this once. Okay. Tick hunger, tick thirst. Add a breakpoint in there. I'm going to go back. I'm not running it through Visual Studio. It's not going to work. Let's try that again. Actually, I'm going to do a live code update on this because I want to be able to do some tweaks. So with that, we could use edit default only here, but we don't want to only have to edit that in the blueprint. I actually want to be able to edit this on the fly, so we're going to make a quick change here. Edit anywhere. And whenever I do a little note, like, even if it's a debug thing like this, I always add a to do, set back to visible anywhere. And the reason for this is it will help me, and it's something I do with all of my code projects. When I do what I would consider a release build, I look through my to-do list and see if there's anything critical that needs to be adjusted before I can do a build. We're going to do that to hunger as well. And we actually need to do that to the struct. These are visible anywhere, so it's just, I'm going to just grab that whole line there. We want that to be the per second tick, because I'm just going to make it so that can be edited on the fly. Let's do a live code build. I'll pull this over so we can see. Now, as I mentioned with that, I do have processes that I use from my everyday development job that I apply here, and that would be things like putting those to-dos on there. Those are things that if they work for you, if there's another way you work that works better for you, like you have a little list you write down and you look at that before you do a build, that's fine. So anyways, now we got that live code updated. We're going to launch in here, and it broke our HUD. Okay, so we do need to do a full rebuild. So I'm going to close out of the editor here, close out of this, and I'm going to do a full rebuild quickly. And I'm also going to run it from Visual Studio. So, all right, that built really quick because there was only some minor changes there. And we'll launch the editor from Visual Studio so I can use those breakpoints that I just put in there as well. That would be, when this switches over, this one here. And actually, I'm going to throw one there as well. So, all right, so we're back in. Okay, so we can see our HUD is fixed. Let's go to the character. Let's go to our stat line. Let's do thirst. Actually, I'm going to change this to 0, and I'm going to change this to -4. And the reason for setting hunger to 0 is simply because it worked fine. It was thirst that wasn't working. So, okay, so thirst hits 0, and then it ticks once, and we're not actually hitting that breakpoint. What is happening here? Why are these not being... I think I know what the issue is here. So the reason for this is we're ticking health first. So let's actually stop this here. Let's see, because it happened as soon as the second one kicked in. We were getting 2 of them happening at once. Let's move health down to the bottom. It's actually something I should have done at the start. Your health regeneration should always be the last thing that you do for situations like this, where you have other things that are going to damage your health. And actually, on that note, we want to go if thirst.current get current less than or equal to 0.0 or hunger.current less than or equal to 0.0, we want to just return. We don't want to regenerate health at all. So let's build that quickly. Let's see, how long does this one take? Again, this should be pretty quick because it was only some minor code changes. Yep, for not even 4 seconds. We'll launch that. Now, one thing, I'm actually going to clean this up once we're done here. I'm going to have the tick health, tick thirst return a Boolean. But, okay, let's check here. Run the game. They're decaying. Let's go into character. Grab our stat line. Let's put our health, hunger to 0. We're going to put this at, I'm going to say -10 actually. Watch that go down quickly, and let's see, does that damage our health now? There we go. Yeah, so that's what it was. The thirst or health damage, hunger damage, was equal to our health regeneration. So when one of them was active, it didn't they canceled each other out. So okay, now we've figured out that one. Let's go through and fix, like I said, we're going to make those 2 return a bool. So I'm just going to go into the statline component quickly, into the header file, bool tick hunger, bool tick thirst. I'm going to the source file, return true, return false. And these need to be a bool. That's that one. Change this one to a bool. Return true. Return false. And then what we want to do here is do if tick hunger or tick thirst, return. So what this is going to do is we're actually going to execute tick hunger. And then we're going to execute tick thirst. Actually, no, that's going to... No, that won't, because if tick hunger will never tick thirst. We'll test that one quickly, actually. Build. Sorry, this is how you're starting to see a glimpse into how my brain works when it comes to writing code. But so where my concern is here is what'll happen is if hunger is out, we're going to stop ticking thirst. So let's just test that quickly. Yeah, the editor's actually launching pretty quickly now. So I'm guessing my DDC is working. So, all right. Let's run it in editor. Let's go over to the character. Stat line. We're going to look at these two and set these at both at -10. But I'm going to give thirst a little bit a chance to get ahead and -10. So let's see. So hunger runs out and thirst stops decaying. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. So that doesn't work. How do we want to handle that? So we could do either something like I know how to do that. So we just switch these around. So if neither of them return true, we want to tick health. So now just to explain again, so what this is saying is if tick hunger returns false, which will turn false if we aren't starving, and if tick thirst returns false, which will return false if we're not starving, then we want to tick our health. So now this should fix that issue we had there. And I thought this was going to be a quick episode. All right, editor's up and running. Let's play in editor. Let's again select our character, go to the stat line and adjust those with our override values to get those down. Hunger is now well below that. Let's get that down. So, nope, that's still doing the same thing. All right, let's see. We probably can just do that. Go with the approach I was using the first time. We don't want those Boolean values. So I'm going to close out of the editor, wait for this to stop debugging. And there we go. And I am just going to use the very lazy Control Z to get back to there. And you notice these are now throwing an error. Well, we need to go through and change these back to voids. So this is why, as I mentioned previously, I do like to build, compile, and test all the time, because I made that minor change and it broke my thirst tick, or it broke my hunger tick, depending however I did it. So this way around, I'm going to look into and do some digging to see if I can figure out a better method for this, but in the interest of time. So what we've got here, just to recover, a recap, if our thirst is less than 0, or less than or equal to 0, or our hunger is less than or equal to 0 after we've ticked, we're going to not tick health. Now, we could encapsulate all of this within its own function. And again, I might do that. It's going to depend on what alternative I find for this. This is something I actually need to think about. I can't do this on the fly. So with that, now we'll move on to the other thing I mentioned. We are going to add in some sneak functionality. So yeah, we got another 15 minutes or so in this episode. So we're going to go up here and we're going to grab this one here. Copy that. Float sneak speed. And I want this to be 75. Now, this one is, again, if you don't need it for your game, don't worry about it. But I do want, in my game, to have the ability to sneak. And just like before, we are going to want to add in a Boolean representative for this. B is sneaky equals false. Now, this really, at this point, all this is going to be used for is determining the movement speed of the character. You can, if you want, within your game, I know there's some that sneaking also costs stamina, but it's a much lower amount than, say, sprinting. I'm not going to be including that in mine, though. So what we want to do here, though, is just basically we want to copy this and create a set sneaking. So U function blueprint callable void set sneaking const bool is sneaking. So we actually need to edit two functions with this. It's both of these, but so we're going to go B is sneaking equals to is sneaking. And then we're going to grab this here. Owning care movement component max walk speed equals B is sneaking. If it's true, we want to set this to sneak speed. And if it's not, we want to set it to walk speed. Now, the other thing I mentioned is in here. So if you're sneaking, let's say you're pressing control and then you hit shift to move into a sprint. This might still be true, even though you're now sprinting, because if you're holding both, and that could, if you're doing the whole like stamina usage for sneaking and stamina usage for sprinting, that could cause some weird code things. So what I do here is we're moving into or out of the sprinting state. So I just go B is sneaking equals false. So we're moving in and out of the sprinting state one way or the other, which means we're not sneaking. And vice versa here, B is sprinting, false. Yes, that does put you in a situation where, as I was mentioning, like you're sneaking and then you, while still pressing your sneak key, and you hit your sprint key, and then you release your sneak key, what's going to happen is you're going to go back to a walk, but it's how it needs to be. I've found you can do some of advanced functionality around that if so let's see, if B is sprinting and B is sneaking. So actually I will do that right now because I just thought of that off the fly. So what this is saying is if we're getting the stop sneaking command but we are sprinting, don't do any of the below logic. And then you can put in just the opposite here. So here I am thinking you needed to do that, and there you go. So B is sneaking, and not B is sprinting. So there we go to that. Now, much like the sprinting, we do need to add that to both the character and the player character classes quickly. Pull these up and close out the stat line. So now again, as I mentioned, I'm not using a stamina consumption for my sprint sneaking, so I don't need this can sprint sneak logic. I can just go void set sneaking. Const bool reference is sneaking. Actually, I'm going to copy that for ease here. Player character. And I'm just going to add that there. Because this is, there's no additional logic we need to worry about that. So. Stat line set sneaking is sneaking. And then over here, I'm going to create that definition. No, I don't need to do that. Sorry. Again, brain is, we want to do it like this. Sprint void sneak on, void sneak off. So set sneaking true. Set sneaking false. And then we want to do that down here. We want to add the input. So let's add another input. And this is where I was saying, like, I expect to have quite a few input actions because you quickly realize you actually end up with lots of them. Sneak action. And that's because every single button that you want the player to be able to map, you want to set up as an input action. So enhanced input component, bind action, sneak action, trigger event, started this ATF player character. I'm just gonna do that. Sneak on. Completed. Sneak off. All right. So, what are you complaining about? No, our actions aren't initialized. That's expected. All right, so we have that all set up. Let's build the project. This should, this might take a moment. It's because we have made some changes to 3 different classes. So. No, it's not actually going to take that long. So. Well, I spoke too soon. So I'm going to pause it here and we'll be back as soon as the build's done and I've launched the editor. All right there, folks. So the build's done. As you can see, everything succeeded. And as I mentioned, I did get the editor up and running. So we do need to do like we did with sprinting. Sprinting. We need to add some more input actions. So we're going to duplicate the sprint, and I'm just going to call that IA sneak. Save that. And go back to our mapping context. We're going to add that one in. Sneak. And in my case, I want that to be left control. So I'm going to do that. Save. And just like before, we need to go back into the third person blueprint. And we need to go sneak. And we can just grab the sneak action here. So now we're not really going to notice a huge difference with the use of the sneak action. So, no. So I'm going to see walk. It's very, well, it's almost unnoticeable or unnoticeable, but you can see there's a minor change in the movement speed. Now, for the purpose of this, that's great. That's actually what we want. We just want it to work. Oh, I keep forgetting my hunger and thirst and that are going down really fast. Panicked for a moment there. But that is what we want. So we've added in the sneaking functionality. We've added in the health and thirst damage to that. And actually, you can see they both run out. And you can notice it's actually going down comparatively quickly because we're doing that double damage. With that, though, folks, I am going to end this episode here. I thought it was going to be a quick episode, but it actually turned out to be almost a full-length one. So, thank you again for watching. Next episode, we're actually going to move on to something a little more, well, I'm going to say interesting. We're going to start working on the save game aspect of this. It's something that you want to get in place early on in the project, and it's something you're going to be testing regularly as you're going through, because you're going to want to make sure things are saving, like your player location, player inventory, player health, and all the objects in the world that you want to be saved. But anyways, folks, thanks again for watching, and until next episode.